Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made these two sweaters. They both have an open back, but one has straight sleeves and the others are flared. These are super cute and easy to make, so let's waste no time and get into this tutorial. So to get started, I'm going to show you on a smaller scale first how to do the V-stitch, but I'll give you the instructions on how to get the full length. So first we're going to start off by making a slip knot, and you're going to make a chain as long as you need to reach from one of your shoulders to the other shoulder. And whatever this number is, you want to make sure that it is a multiple of 3. Okay, so whatever that number is for you, just make sure it's a multiple of 3. For me, mine was 73 chains long, but on this sample, maybe I'll do just like 24. So first go ahead and make your chain of whatever multiple of 3 to reach from shoulder to shoulder. Okay, so for this sample, I have 24 chains, but for my actual full length project, I had 73. But once you have your whatever multiple of 3, you're going to go ahead and you're going to chain an additional 2. Once you have your additional 2 chains, you're going to go into the third chain from your hook and you're going to put 1 double crochet. So in case you don't know how to do a double crochet, you're going to yarn over, go into that third chain from your hook, reach in and then pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through 2 of those loops, and then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2 loops. Okay. After you do that, you're going to chain 1, and in the same stitch that or I should say same chain, the same chain that we just put that double crochet in, we're going to start a second double crochet, but we're not going to finish it. So yarn over, go into that same chain space and pull up a loop, and then pull through the first 2 loops. After that, you're going to move over, skip the next chain and go into the chain after that, and you're going to start another double crochet. So yarn over, skip the next chain, go into the following, go into that chain space, pull up a loop. You should have 4 loops on your hook now. Then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Now you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Then yarn over and pull through your remaining 3 loops. That is how you're going to be doing your V-stitch. So it might be kind of hard to see in this very first one that we've done, but that's okay. We'll keep going and it'll get clearer as we go. So from there, you're going to chain 1 in the same stitch. You're going to start your next double crochet. So yarn over, go into that same stitch, pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Then you're going to skip the next chain, and in the one after that, start your next double crochet. So yarn over, reach into that second stitch, pull up a loop. You'll have 4 chains on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over and pull through all 3. And essentially what you did there is you finished off both of those 2 double crochets that you started. Okay. Then chain 1, reach back into that same stitch and do half of your first double crochet. Then yarn over, skip the next stitch and into the following. Go ahead and start your second double crochet. Then you'll have 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3, chain 1, and you're just going to keep repeating that all the way down the length of your row. And what you can see happen is you start to get your V-stitch. So your V's, which, ooh, sorry guys, this isn't the best color, but this is what the project is going to be in. So sorry, it's just going to be that way. But you can see there's like these little V's here. This is your V-stitch. So this is what we're working up. So just continue on following that pattern. So it looks like I already have my chain one. So I'm going to yarn over, go into that same stitch again, and start making my first double crochet. Don't finish it though, still leave 2 loops on your hook. Then skip the next stitch, go into the stitch that follows and start your second double crochet. Pull through the first 2 loops and then finish off both of those double crochets that you didn't fully finish by pulling through all 3 loops, chain 1, and repeating to the end. I am at the end of my row, and as you can see, I have 2 stitches left that are untouched, and I'm in the third or to last stitch. So I started off with my first double crochet that was there and completed it. Then I chained 1, and I've started the second double crochet here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over and skip the next stitch, go into this last stitch here with my second double crochet, pull through the first 2 loops, then yarn over, pull through all 3 of the remaining stitches, and that marks the end of row 1. To make your way into row 2, which will be your repeating row from here on out pretty much, all you have to do is chain 2, turn your work, and now take a look at your V stitches. You will notice that there is like a very clear V shape that, gets created. It might look like a lot when you're first taking a look at it, but you will see there's like this V here, and then there's like these little holes or like windows, we'll call them, that sit below that. We're not concerned with those. We're just looking at the V's and the big spaces that exist right above your V. Okay, so going into into row 2, you've chained 2, you turn your work, and in the very first V space that you see, so it's right here, what you're going to do is you're going to put 1 complete double crochet. So yarn over, reach into that V stitch, pull up a loop, then pull through 2, then pull through the remaining 2 loops. Okay. Then you're going to chain 1 and do the same thing we did for the previous row. So go ahead, reach into that same V stitch, pull up a loop, you'll have 3 loops on your hook, and then pull through the first 2 loops. This is the start of your second double crochet, but we're not going to finish it. We're going to reach over into our next V stitch, and we're going to yarn over, reach in there, pull up a loop. You should have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, then complete it by pulling through all 3 loops. Chain 1, yarn over, go back into that same V stitch, start your second double crochet in that stitch, but don't finish it. Then move over to the next V stitch you see, yarn over, do your next double crochet, or at least start it, and then finish it by pulling through all 3 of your stitches. Chain 1 and repeat. And you're going to do that until you get all the way to the end of this row. Okay, I'm reaching the end of my row. As you can see, I have 2 V spaces left. I already have my first double crochet in this first one. So I have to chain 1 and then start the second double crochet in that same V stitch, but don't finish it. Then I'm going to go into my last V stitch and start up the next double crochet, and then pull through all 3 loops to end off both of those double crochets. Chain 1, put one more double crochet into that same V-stitch, or at least start it, don't finish it. We're actually going to finish it by going into the chain 2 space, which it's rather small looking and it's hanging out here like hiding on the end, but that's where we're going to finish off this row. So we did our double crochet, we chained 1, we've started the second double crochet that's in this stitch, but we'll finish it by yarning over, going into that chain 2 space that's hiding on the end, pulling up a loop, then yarning over, pulling through 2 loops. You'll have 3 loops left on your hook, then pull through all 3. And then that is how you finish off your row. And then going into your next row, we do the same thing that we did for this row. You chain 2, turn your work, and then in the very first V stitch we have, you're going to go ahead and put 1 complete double crochet in there, then chain 1, start your second double crochet in that same V stitch. Don't finish it though. Then go ahead and move over to the next V stitch. Start that double crochet, but don't finish it. Yarn over and then pull through all 3 loops, chain 1, and continue on with your pattern. And you are going to work up this V-stitch pattern for however long you want your front panel to be. So what I recommend you doing is take a tape measure and measure from the top of your shoulder down to where on your side or your hip where you would like your top to be, like lengthwise. And I will meet you guys after I have worked up that full length. Okay, so once you have the full length that you want your front panel to be, we then have to move on to doing like the little portion that will go around and be like your neckline, but it kind of like, this is the part that'll fold over and kind of sit over your shoulder. So that's what we're working on next. So before you even get to this step, your work should just look like a giant square. And what you're going to want to do is take 2 stitch markers and you're going to place them however wide you want your neckline to be, like, or where you want it to start off at, because it is going to fan out, or excuse me, oops, hit the camera, wherever you want it to be. It is going to fan out just a little bit because we're going to do a few decreases to widen this neckline, but wherever you want it to start off at, like be its smallest, go ahead and place your 2 stitch markers there and just make sure that you place them equal distance apart. So counting from the outside in, make sure that they're the same distance apart. When you go to count where you want your stitch markers to sit, you're literally just counting these little V stitches. So mine were 14 apart, I believe. Let me go back and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then stitch markers in 14. Yeah, so mine were 14 apart. And then once you do that, you're going to go ahead and continue on with your V-stitch for a minute, and I will show you guys what that looks like. So since I'm showing you on the other side, I do have to reattach my yarn. But for you guys doing your first side, all you have to do is, as usual, chain 2 and turn your work. But once you get to your second side, you're going to have to reattach your yarn into the corner. So put it in the space where you do your chain 2. Okay, so you'll attach your yarn there, and then you're going to chain 2. And then in the very first V-stitch, you're going to do the same thing we've been doing. So yarn over and put 1 complete double crochet there. Then chain 1 and start a second double crochet into that same stitch. And then go ahead and start another double crochet in the next V-stitch, and then finish off those 2 double crochets you started. Chain 1, start off another double crochet in the same stitch, then start your next double crochet in the next V-stitch, finish both of them, chain one, and keep going all the way until you reach your stitch marker. Okay, so I'm getting ready to work a double crochet into this V-stitch, so I'm at the V-stitch right before it. I did my first double crochet, I'm chaining one, I'm starting off my next double crochet in that same stitch, and then I'm gonna move my stitch marker, and I'm going to do my second double crochet into that V-stitch and finish it off by pulling through all three, and that is going to be the end of this first row. And here's where we're going to break off from. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a few decreasing rows, and our decreasing rows are going to be on the rows that go this way. So when we chain two and turn our work, then we'll do a decreasing row. But I just want to point out and make sure that you guys remember that you're only decreasing when going towards your flat edge or straight edge, not in towards the curved neckline. I think it just makes it a little bit easier if you do it that way. Now, doing our first decreasing row, you're going to chain two, as usual, turn your work. But now this time, instead of going into this very first V-stitch here, we're going to go into the second one. And so that's how we're going to get our decrease. So nothing changes about the actual pattern of your stitches. You're just going to skip this whole first little V-stitch here. So in the second one, go ahead and do your first full or completed double crochet. Then chain one. Go ahead and start a second double crochet in that same stitch, then yarn over, move over to the next V-stitch, or I should say start your next double crochet, and then pull through all three loops to finish off those two double crochets, chain one, and just repeat your pattern like we've been doing. And you're going to complete it all the way till you reach the end of your work. I'm almost at the end of my work, so I just have this last V-stitch that I'm working in and then the little chain two space. So I'm gonna start my next double crochet in there, second double crochet, pull through all three, and that is our first row across. And as you can see, it already kinda, let me lay it flat so you can see better. Your work will already start to slant in a little bit. So that's how we do our decreasing rows. So now from here, you're going to chain two, turn your work, and go straight across from one end to the other, no decreases. So I'll start it off with you and then I'll meet you guys again at the end of this row. So we did our chain two, so no decreasing for this row. In the very first V-stitch, go ahead and work the pattern as usual. Do one completed double crochet, chain one, start off a second double crochet in that same V-stitch, then start your next double crochet in the next V-stitch, pull through all three loops to finish both of those double crochets off, chain one, and keep working up your pattern, and I'll meet you guys at the end of this row. I'm towards the end of my row and I have okay, so technically I have two stitches left and my chain one or chain two space. So I have this stitch that I'm currently, already working in. I got one double crochet in there already. I have this V-stitch here, and then this stitch that's kind of like slanted sideways. This is my chain two space that kind of formed because of the decrease, because you can see we have no stitches going into this V-stitch sitting below it. It goes into the next one here. I hope you guys can see that okay, but as long as you just do this row from end to end like normal, you shouldn't have any issues. So let me go ahead and finish off like you would when we were doing the main part of our panel. Okay, so I have my sorry guys, I have my two V-stitches here. I have one halfway completed, and then I'm going to finish completing it into this chain two space here. And this is officially the end of this row. Okay. So that's what that row looks like. So then we're going to chain 2 and we're going to turn our work and work our way back across the other way. And because we are working our way back out towards the straight side of our project, we are going to decrease yet again on this side. So we already chained 2, so we're gonna skip the whole first V-stitch here and go ahead and work one completed, or I should say one complete double crochet into the second V-stitch. Chain 1, start your first double crochet in that same stitch, but don't complete it. Yarn over, work the start of your next double crochet in the next V-stitch, then pull through all 3 loops, chain 1, and keep working up the pattern as normal till you get to the end of this row. Okay, I'm getting towards the end of my row, so I'm just gonna keep working up the pattern all the way to the very end. Okay, and this is what your neckline should be looking like so far. So you can keep going back and forth doing your decreases until you're satisfied with how wide your neckline is. And then what I did after that is I go in with just 2 rows of just the straight V-stitch back and forth with no decreases. Okay, so I made it to the end of my row. So if you're working on just your first, if your work looks like this, you would go ahead and chain 1 and then cut your yarn here and then reattach it on the other straight edge and repeat everything that we just did for these. I think I have 6 rows in total. Let me go back and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So I have 6 rows in total. You could have more, you could have less. If you're doing the exact same amount I did, after you have your 6 here, then go ahead and repeat everything on this side for 6 rows. And then I will show you how we will once again reconnect our work, and then we'll start working down to get the back side of our panel. Okay, so once you have your 2 panels done, or I should say your 2 like shoulder neckline parts done, we're going to end up reconnecting our row so that way we can just go back and forth and have one whole back panel, at least for the portion of our back panel that will be whole. And then we'll basically be doing like these 2 separate little side flaps again, but not there just yet. First, we have to connect these 2. So what you can do, if you have the same exact stitch count as me, you can remember, or hopefully remember, in the beginning, we started off with a chain of 75. That's not including the 2 additional chains we had that were our turning chains. Okay, so I had 75 and I basically need to just get back to 75 stitches. So what you can do, pick a side, doesn't matter which. You're going to go ahead and you're going to count how many of these V-stitches you have at the top of your work. It should be the exact same amount on both sides. Okay, so count up how much you have on one side, double it, because you got 2 ends, and then you're going to take that number and subtract it from what our initial number of stitches were when we were first getting started straight across. So I have currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So I have 23 here. You know, I'm confident in knowing that my sides are equal, but if you are a little like, I don't know, go ahead and count up the other side. You should have, well, the same amount. So I should have 23 on both sides, and I'm going to double that for my 2 sides. So I add those 2 23 stitches together, and that gives me, what, 46? So I have 46 stitches in total, And we're trying to make our way back up to the same amount of stitches we had when we first started this round, or excuse me, not round, first started this project or this row or panel, whatever. So for me, it was 75. No, it was 73. I had 73 plus a chain of 2, which was my turning chain. So for my initial 73 here, I currently have 46. So I will subtract 72 from 46, and that is what, 29 stitches. So I need to get 29 stitches in this middle part, so that way I end up with my full 73 stitches again. So how we're going to do that, if you already have done your second panel, don't cut your yarn. We're going to go ahead and work our V-stitch all the way back to this corner. And then what we're essentially going to do is we're going to chain however many missing stitches we need to get us to the full amount that we started off with for our panel. So let me chain 2 here and turn my work. And as usual, I'm going to work my V-stitch pattern all the way across until I get to this part here. So I'll meet you guys once I get to this point. Okay, so I'm working in the very last V-stitch that I have here. So I've had 1 completed double crochet. I'm chaining 1, and then I'm going to go ahead and put my second double crochet in there. I'm going to finish it off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my chain of however many stitches you calculated that you needed to fill up this center part here. So that way when we do our chain and then finish off with the V-stitches on this side, we end up with our full 73 or however many stitches you had initially in your row. So I ended off with my 2 V-stitches, and now I'm going to chain 29. Now I have the amount that I need to reconnect my 2 ends and make this a singular piece again. So picking up the other side, I'm going to go ahead and pick up where I left off at. So yarn over, and in this first V-stitch, we're going to put 1 complete double crochet. Then you are going to chain 1, go ahead and start off your next double crochet in that same V-stitch, yarn over, get started with a new double crochet into the following V-stitch, but don't finish it. You should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that is how you connect your 2 ends together. So everything from here is the same as we've been doing, so go ahead and continue to work your V-stitch pattern to the other end of your work, and I'll meet you guys there. So I've made it to the end of this row, and just to make sure that you guys aren't getting yourselves confused or mixed up anywhere, I have this last V-stitch that I'm currently working in, and then I still do have a chain 2 space here, so don't go getting confused and feeling like you're messing yourselves up. So I'm going to chain 1 and start to work my second double crochet in that stitch, and then don't forget your chain 2. So I'm going to work my second double crochet into that chain 2 space and then pull through all 3 loops to finish off that row. And then you should have your 2 sides. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work our way into making the top portion of our back panel before our 2 sides break off. So we're going to go back and forth just doing the regular V-stitch, so it'll end up looking like this part of our work again. And you can make this as long as you want. It'll be, different for everybody. Everyone's body's a little bit different. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do however many rows I need until I get about 6 inches. Maybe I'll have it be a little bit longer. Let me just check. I have the tape measure here. So, yeah, I think I'll make mine about 6 inches long. So that's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 rows. So I have 12 rows to go before we get to splitting off the back panel. So to show you guys one row, just so I can get you, confident in knowing how to navigate your chain spaces, we're going to do this next row together. So chain 2, turn your work, and you're going to work your V-stitch pattern exactly the same up until you get to this point here. So go ahead and do all of that on your own because you guys know how to do it. And then I'll meet you guys once we get to our chains. Okay, so I'm currently working in my last V-stitch before I get to my chains. So I'm in the middle of doing my first double crochet. I'll do that and pull through all 3 of these loops, then chain 1 and start off my second double crochet. But we're not going to finish it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now skip the very first chain, and then in the second chain we're going to finish off our double crochet. So yarn over, go into the second chain and start your double crochet, then finish off by pulling through all 3 loops, chain 1, start off another double crochet into that same chain stitch. Okay, but then don't finish off. What you're going to do is you're going to skip the next chain, and in the chain after that, go ahead and do your next double crochet, or at least start it. Okay, you should end up with 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3. So basically now what we're doing is the same thing we did on our very first row of our panel. So instead of working into the V-stitches, since they don't exist in this chain, we're just going to skip every other stitch. So once again, we're in chain 1. In this same chain space, we need to work the other side of our V-stitch. So start off by doing half of one of your double crochets, then yarn over, skip the next chain. In the chain after that, go ahead and start another double crochet, then pull through all 3 loops, chain 1, start off another double crochet in that same chain, yarn over, skip the next chain, start your next double crochet in the following chain, and then pull through all 3 loops to finish off both of those 2 double crochets we started, chain 1, and just keep repeating yourself until you get to the other end of your chain. Okay, so I've made it across my row. I'm currently working in the very last chain stitch. So I have my first double crochet done. I'm going to chain 1, start off my second half of my V-stitch, so half of my first double crochet, and then I'm skipping this last chain stitch, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start working in my actual V-stitches on the other side. So I'll go ahead and go into that V-stitch and start to make my second double crochet, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, chain 1, yarn over, start to make another double crochet into that same stitch, but don't finish it. Move over to the next V-stitch, start up my next double crochet, then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and what do you know? We have reconnected our work, and now we're back to basically square one. So go ahead and continue on working up your V-stitches for the remainder of this row, and I'll meet you guys once again at the end of this row. Okay, so I made it all the way across this very first row, reconnecting my 2 sides. And now I'm just going to continue to do the regular V-stitch down, back and forth until I have my back panel as long as I want it to be, like the solid connected part. And then we'll break off our 2 sides once again. So I had said that I was going to do roughly 6 inches worth of V-stitch rows, and I think I had said that was about 12 rows. So I have 1 done, so I'm going to do 11 more, and then I'll meet you guys after those 11 are done and show you what we will do from then on out, working up the back panel. So once you have finished crocheting up however many rows you wanted to have for the top part of your back panel, you're then going to move into doing the break off point and do the sides of the two sides to your back panel. So I already have one done here so you can see what it looks like. And just like little tidbit or whatever, a little tip, after you do your first side, you are going to end up having to cut off your yarn so that way you can do the other side, you know, reattach it over here. But after you do the second side of your panel, don't disconnect your yarn because you want to be able to go straight into sewing up the side seam and then go straight into working on the sleeve. It'll just, you know, keep you from having more ends to weave in. So after your second panel, make sure that you don't cut off your yarn. But I actually do need to cut off my yarn so I can show you how I did this one side. Okay, so currently what you guys would have at this point is, you know, not this part, just this straight across part from here down. If your yarn is already still attached into a corner for your first side, you can just leave it there. For the second side, you are going to reattach your yarn into this little space where the chain 2 sits. Okay, and then from here, doesn't matter, we'll all do the same part. You're going to chain 2 and turn your work if you haven't already done so. In the very first V little stitch that we have, you're going to go ahead and put 1 complete double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, and then pull through the first 2 loops of your first double crochet, then move into the second V and do your next double crochet and finish off those 2 portions of your half double crochets. And then you are going to chain 1 and then do another double crochet, but only half of it. Then move over to the next V-stitch, start the next double crochet, pull through all 3, chain 1, and you're going to work your way across as far as you would like. Here, let me bring it this way actually so you can see it better. You're going to work your way across as far over as you would like to have your separation like start from. Figure out how far in you want to have your separation be. This will determine how big of a gap or open back kind of concept that you have. So place your stitch markers wherever you want. I believe I put mine 14 V stitches in. So once you have those where you want them to be, then you can go back to doing this row. And we're going to continue on with our same old little V-stitch pattern or whatever you want to call it until we get to our first stitch marker. So I'm basically at my stitch marker. I need to finish off the V-stitch in this one and then do 1 double crochet into the place where the stitch marker is. So let me chain 1, start my V-stitch in that same stitch, and then move my stitch marker and then yarn over and do 1 double crochet, or at least start the double crochet in the next V-stitch, then yarn over and then pull through all 3, just like we've been doing. And then I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn my work, and we are going to do once again another decreasing row like how we did for our neckline. So instead of working our first double crochet into this first V-stitch that we have here, we're actually going to put it into this V-stitch right next to it. So do 1 complete double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, start off your next double crochet in that same V-stitch. Don't finish it though. Yarn over, move over to the next V-stitch, start off the next double crochet, then yarn over and pull through your remaining loops. Goodness gracious, starting to be a tongue twister at this point. And then you're just going to continue on working your way down till you get to the other end of your row. And there we go. We have our first decreasing row. You'll notice it kind of like slants in a little bit. That's exactly what we want. So now working our way back across the other way, we're not going to do any decreases. So you can chain 2, turn your work, and do the exact same regular V-stitch pattern all the way up to the other end, and I'll meet you guys once I get there. That is the second row of this little portion where we're going to be doing decreases, although we did not decrease in this row. So we're going to chain 2, turn our work, and then this next row we will be decreasing. All right, so we chain 2, turn our work, and once again we're going to decrease. So skip this whole first V stitch altogether and continue on with the pattern as usual till you make it all the way to the end of this row. Okay, I just finished off that row, and that is our last decreasing row. And if you take a look at your work, if you lie it down flat, you'll see that you have a little curve right there. So now what we're going to do for the remaining length of our back is just do straight, regular back and forth V-stitch rows. Nothing changes. We're doing the same thing we've been doing up till this point. Goodness gracious, I've been doing this all day. I'm really tired. Just work your regular V-stitch back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until the remaining portion of your back panel is long enough to meet the length of what you have for your front side. Okay, so I finished this row. Now I have ended off in the side, like in the corner that is going to be where I slip stitch and seam up the side of my top. So what I'm going to do now is chain 1 just to secure that end. And instead of cutting my yarn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just seam up the side. Oops, and seam up the side up to where I want my sleeve hole to be. So if you are on the very first like little side panel piece for the back, go ahead and do this first before you move on to doing the second panel on the other side of the back. So that way you have less weaving of ends that you have to do later on. So once that's done, you can go ahead and just try to line up your front and back panel to the best of your ability, and go ahead and in wherever you can reach through onto both sides and just pull your yarn through and do, oops, sorry, didn't mean to shake my camera. Just go ahead and pull this yarn through at different points all the way up along the side until you reach where you want your sleeve hole to be. Mine is right where I broke off the 2 pieces. That's where I'm stopping. For you, it might be a little different, but just be mindful that, you know, at this point you can try it on and like see how much space you feel like you're going to need for your arm. But the more, or I should just say the bigger the space you leave for your arm, the bigger or wider your sleeve is going to be. And then the less space you leave for your sleeve, the smaller the hole is, the more fitted your sleeve is going to be. So please be mindful of that as you are seaming up these sides. But I'm going to go ahead and finish off doing that, and then we will start working on our sleeves. for your sleeve, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing for all of our work so far, except this time we're going to be working in the round of our little hole here for our sleeve. So what you're going to do is you're going to start off with a chain of 2. And then for this very first row, you might have to get a little creative on where you sit your stitches, just because this is going to set the foundation for how many V-stitches you have in each row, and you will want to count them to make sure you duplicate the same amount on the other side of your top. But you're going to go ahead and put 1 complete double crochet into the first space where you want your V-stitch to start. Then you're going to chain 1, start your next double crochet in that same stitch, and then move over to the next spot where you think you want your V-stitch to be, and start and finish the next one. And basically you're just continuing the same thing that you've been doing for your V-stitch all the way up to this point. So I'm going to continue doing my V-stitch all the way around this sleeve, and I'll meet you guys back at my starting point to show you how we continue this round. All right, so I made it around my sleeve and I'm back to where I started off, and it might be kind of hard to see, but right here is my chain 2. So I ended off in this very last stitch. I have 1 complete double crochet. I have the start of my second double crochet, and then I'm going to end off by reaching into the chain 2 space, and I'm going to pull through all 3 loops that are on my hook. And then from there you can chain 2, and then in your very first V-stitch you're going to go ahead and put 1 full double crochet, or I should say 1 complete double crochet. Then you're going to chain 1, start off your next double crochet like how we've been doing up to this point, then move over to your next V-stitch and then work up your next double crochet. Remember to pull through all 3 loops, and just continue your V-stitch from there as usual. Okay, I've made it to the end of this round. I have 2 V-stitches left, this one that I've yet to do anything in, and this one which I started with my first double crochet. So I'm chaining 1, I'm starting off the second double crochet in that V-stitch, then I'm going to move over to this last V-stitch and do my next double crochet, chain 1, and I'm going to start my second double crochet, leave 2 loops on my hook, and then reach into this chain 2 space right here and pull up a stitch, and then I'm going to pull through those 2 loops on my hook, and then that's the end of this round. So then from here I just continue on, chain 2, in my very first V-stitch, do 1 complete double crochet, chain 1, and you are going to continue to work up this V-stitch in the round for however many rows you want your sleeve to be lengthwise. If you want to do your sleeves just as regular straight sleeves, then you'll do this all the way like till you reach a little bit past your wrist. But if you want to do the option with like a flared bell cap kind of sleeve, then once you get a little bit above the wrist area, I'll show you what you'll do from there. So go ahead, make your sleeves as long as you want. I'll meet you guys once we work up a bit more of our sleeve. Okay, so at this point I have a considerable amount of my sleeve done. If you want to do the version of this where your sleeves are just straight like this, then you're going to go ahead and skip to the timestamp that I have on the screen, and I will show you how to completely like finish off your sleeve. Otherwise, if you want to do the little bell capped kind of a sleeve, we're going to move into our next round. So now to do increases for this next round, we are going to do an increase and then 1 regular V-stitch. So let's get started by doing our chain of 2. And then in the very first V-stitch, we're going to do an increase. So go ahead and do 1 completed double crochet. chain one, do another complete double crochet, and that'll be our first V-stitch. Then you're going to chain one again, do another double crochet. This will be the first side of our second V-stitch. Then chain one last time, and then we're going to do our yarn over, pull up a loop and then pull through 2 loops, and then leave it like that, and then move into the next V-stitch to finish off that last double crochet, as well as start this next double crochet. So we're going to do this a couple of times just to make sure that it makes sense. So that was the first one. Then our next stitch or next V-stitch is going to be basic. So we already have the first double crochet completed. So we chain one and then start off your second double crochet and then move over to the next V and start your double crochet in there, like how we usually do our V-stitch. And then this next one is where we're doing our increase. So you chain one, we already have 1/2 of our V-stitch here. So we're gonna do a complete double crochet, then chain one, and then the second one in here will be the increase. So another complete double crochet, chain one, and then start the other side of that V-stitch, but don't finish it. Then move over to the next V-stitch and start up the next one. And then remember to pull through all 3. This next one is a basic or just regular V-stitch. So we have our first half of our V-stitch there. So we chain one and then start the V-stitch in the second, or excuse me, in the same stitch there, but then don't finish it. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then yarn over, go into the next V-stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, then pull through all 3 on your hook. I'm going to go ahead and finish off this round and then show you how I move from here. Okay, so for this next round, my very first V-stitch here that I have, or set of V-stitches that I have, are where I did an increase. So you see there's a V-stitch here, there's a space, like a chain one space in between, and then there's this second V-stitch here. And this space in between really does kind of like cause your work to look like you have 3 V-stitches all in this one stitch. So we're just going to work with that. It also kind of helps with the effect that we're going for. So start off your work with a chain of 2, then looking solely at the very first V-stitch, go ahead and do your first complete double crochet, then yarn over, or excuse me, chain 1, yarn over, reach in the same V-stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, then move over to this chain 1 space that is causing the appearance of a second V-stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, pull through all 3 loops, chain 1, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops. So that's like our second V-stitch in this increase. And then we have to yarn over again, go into the next V-stitch in this same little cluster here from our increase, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, chain 1, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops. Then we actually move over to the next V-stitch, which is the singular V-stitch that we had before we get to our next cluster of V-stitches. So if it's kind of hard for you to see, I feel like the more you work with it, the easier it'll be to see where these V-stitches are. But anytime you just see a little, anytime you see a little V like that, just go ahead and work a double, or not work a double crochet, work a V-stitch into that space, and your work should kind of work itself out. I'm just going to continue to do this round like normal. I'm not doing any increases. I'm just working with the V-stitches that I see present before me. and then I will show you guys what we do after that. Okay, so I made it to the end of this round, and as you can see, like this round really helps, like, I don't know, accentuate the fanning of your sleeve. So I'm going to finish off this round by slip stitching into that chain 2 space and pulling through all of my loops. And then the next round that we're going to do is going to be the exact same as what we did for, our regular V-stitch rounds. We're not doing any increases just yet. So go ahead, chain 2, and then continue your V-stitch pattern as normal. And I will meet you guys at the end of this round. Okay, so I just finished my second round where I wasn't doing any increases, and this is what my sleeve is looking like so far. Now I'm going to do 3 more rounds. One is going to be, or I should say our first one is going to be our next increasing round, and then we have 2 just regular rounds after that. So I'm going to finish off this round and then do my next 2 rounds. We've already done this before one go round, and then I will show you how you finish off your sleeve. So once you have the full length of your sleeve, whether you were just doing, just a fully straight sleeve, or if you were adding in the little bit that is going to be flared out, regardless of what you did, interesting little step you can do. You can disregard this if you want, but I like to add a slip stitch into the tops or very last little row of V's that I have, just to prevent my work from stretching over time, because as you can see, like this has a lot of give, and I don't want to have to worry about that. I don't want that to be a future me problem or concern. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to slip stitch into each of my stitches in this last row, and then I'll meet with you guys at that point and we'll move on to the next part. Once your sleeves are completed, we're going to work on making this ribbing around the neckline as well as down along the whole bottom edge of our top. So I already have the neckline completed because I'm going to do the exact same thing for the bottom of my top as I did for here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to flip my work over, and I'm going to start at one of my 2 ends. It doesn't matter which end you start at. So I'm taking my yarn and I'm going to reconnect it into this corner here. And you can make this little like ribbed part as long or as big or as small or short, whatever as you want. I'm going to keep mine on the shorter side, but you are not limited to this. Now we're moving on to the last part, which is making this long chain of single crochets, which is going to serve as the tie for our back. This is the back portion of my top, and here is where I, identified that like I want my ties to sit. So I already reattached my yarn into the corner, so I'm going to go ahead and just do 4 single crochets along the side of the back of my top. And then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm just going to keep working 1 single crochet into each of my 4 stitches for however long I want my ties to be. This will vary from person to person. You can also make your chain like wider if you want. I'm just gonna keep it on the thinner side for this project, but you're just gonna keep going back and forth. 1 single crochet into each of your 4 stitches until you get your desired length. And then once you finish these, you'll have 2 of these long straps that you can use to tie up the back of your top. So once you do that, all you have left to do is weave in your ends. So I will finish this off and then meet up with you guys after that's done. For the pockets, all I did was crochet 2 squares that were made up of just a bunch of single crochets, and then I took some extra yarn and my darning needle and just hand sewed them into place. And if you want the colorful trim, all you have to do is single crochet around the perimeter of wherever you want your pop of color. Once you're done with your piece, be sure to weave in any loose ends.
But that's all I have for you today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed making your sweaters, and I hope the instructions were easy enough for you to follow. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to be in the loop on when I upload another tutorial. I'll see you guys soon with another video. Bye guys!